Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is really laser-focused. We're here to help you elevate your English, specifically for work and career. This whole deep dive is custom-built for you, looking at your sources to pull out the sophisticated vocabulary and, the critical strategies you need for high-stakes professional communication, whether that's a boardroom or, and this is key, under the pressure of the IELTS exam. Okay, so let's unpack this. You've given us a fantastic stack of sources covering some really advanced C1 level vocabulary and some critical exam techniques. And the goal here, it isn't just memorizing words. It's about acquiring language that gives your professional discussions real weight, the kind of language that signals confidence. And on the practical side, of course, we need those strategies that help you process information quickly and just ace that listening paper.
Precisely. We're really bridging that crucial gap, between being functional in English and being truly articulate. It's the difference between, let's say, sounding competent and actually demonstrating a profound mastery of that professional environment. So we'll be zeroing in on verbs that define ambition and concepts that let you nuance the reality of the modern workplace.
So our mission then is to distill the most potent vocabulary and strategic insights you need. Let's jump right in. Let's start with a verb that I think gives your language serious weight. Let's talk about to AC. We hear it all the time, right? She aced the interview, we aced the proposal. Woo. But if we're using this in a serious professional setting, how do we make sure it communicates strategy and not just, luck?
That's a critical question. In a professional context, to ace something means performing at a level that translates directly into a significant and I'd say anticipated business win. The success isn't accidental. It showcases competence, yes, but it's really about a winning execution under pressure. If you looked at how it's used, it's about proficiency, but also foresight. So think about acing a negotiation.
Okay.
It doesn't just mean you got a good deal. It means you anticipated all the counter-arguments, you prepared responses, and you guided the conversation to where you want it to go. The word ace really transforms it from just a result into a demonstration of strategic capability.
So if I were in a performance review, saying I aced the client presentation tells my boss not just that the client was happy, but that I managed the risk, I preempted issues, and I designed the perfect pitch for that specific audience.
Exactly. It speaks to your ability to think several steps ahead. It's a very high-impact verb. It signals that you're a high-potential individual who doesn't just perform, but you manage the entire context around that performance.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit to formality. Let's talk about commence. I know it means start or begin, but how do I know when to use it so I sound professional but not, pompous? When is start just fine?
Right, and that's all about the context of significance. Commence consistently carries a more formal, official, or significant tone. It implies a major kickoff. You wouldn't use it for, small daily tasks. You wouldn't say, I will commence writing this email. It just sounds wrong.
Not fit much.
A bit much, yes. You save commence for corporate communications, formal project initiations, that sort of thing. For instance, the compliance audit will commence next Monday. That communicates a very structured, official beginning. It reinforces the importance of that activity. Or in a legal context, proceedings commenced. It signifies that transition from a preliminary stage to a formal, active process. The word itself sets a serious expectation.
I see. So it's like a linguistic signpost for how serious the action is. Okay, moving on. Follow up. This sounds, it sounds a bit administrative. Why do our sources call it a cornerstone of professionalism?
Because it is the absolute bedrock of reliability. Follow-up means taking more action, investigating something further, or revisiting a past conversation. It signals continuity, thoroughness, accountability. It's a proactive verb. It's what moves projects forward.
And how does that simple action actually build professional trust?
Well, think about client relations. If a client gives you some feedback and you say, I'll follow up on that tomorrow, you're making an active commitment.
Right.
You're not just acknowledging it. You are actively pledging to find a resolution. And that action, and just using that phrase, it builds immediate trust. It shows their input is valued and it won't just, disappear into a black hole.
Yeah, makes sense. It's about closing the loop. This is where we can move beyond just action to description, using adjectives to add some color and depth. I want to start with two words that describe intense work, but with wildly different feelings. Yeah. Hectic and stimulating.
Oh, it's a perfect contrast. Hectic is definitely the negative end of intense. It means extremely busy, often chaotic, high volume under pressure. You could say frenetic or bustling. It really implies stress and a lack of control.
And stimulating, then, is the ideal, the good kind of busy.
Precisely. Stimulating describes a workplace that causes excitement, interest, activity. But through intellectual or emotional engagement, this is the environment we all hope for. It's where the pressure actually drives creativity instead of chaos. The challenge is the reward.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Think about a factory. A hectic factory floor might mean machines are breaking down, orders are piling up, workers are just running around. But a stimulating R&D lab, on the other hand, is also busy, but the energy comes from shared curiosity, from the excitement of a potential discovery.
That's a great distinction. It really helps frame what you're looking for in a job. Okay, now let's tackle a major challenge in today's job market: underemployed. What does this term really capture beyond just having a job?
Underemployed means someone is underutilized, they're overqualified, or they're working below their potential. We see this a lot with highly qualified graduates who take entry-level roles just to get a foot in the door. It points to a real disconnect between academic training and the opportunities that are immediately available.
So what are the implications of that for a company or even the economy?
Well, the big implication is that underemployed individuals are naturally, highly motivated to find better roles. They're always looking. This fuels talent mobility, which is great for them, but it creates turnover challenges for companies that rely on that entry-level staff. It's a constant tension.
Let's pivot to communication. In these huge organizations with Slack and teams everywhere, why is the simple one-on-one suddenly so valuable?
Because a one-on-one is direct, it's individualized, and it's private. Generic group communication just rarely leads to personal growth. Think about a performance review. A one-on-one allows for targeted guidance that is so much more impactful than some generalized feedback you give to the whole department.
It cuts through the noise.
Exactly. It maximizes the signal. For skill improvement, that focused coaching accelerates development because you're addressing specific weaknesses without the filter of, public scrutiny.
Right. And finally, in this section, a quick one. Let's solidify two economic terms. Can you give us a quick way to remember the difference between labor-intensive and capital-intensive?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, think of a small, family-run bakery that makes artisanal bread. They rely on skilled bakers, high human effort. The labor cost is their biggest expense. That is labor-intensive.
Okay, got it.
Now compare that to a massive automated potato chip factory. That required a huge upfront investment in robotics and machinery. The cost is tied up in the equipment.
So that's capital-intensive.
That's capital-intensive. It's a key distinction for understanding where the big investment and the barriers to entry are in an industry.
Okay, we've got the language down for describing our work, but knowing how to capture that language quickly.
Yeah, especially
under pressure, that's a whole different skill.
Yeah.
So let's shift to strategic processing. You highlighted that the absolute key is efficient note-taking.
Yes. And the core rule is, well, it's absolute. Do not attempt to write down every single word you hear. Trying to transcribe everything is it's impossible, and it's counterproductive because you will fall behind the speaker and miss the critical information.
So what should we be listening for then? How do we train our ear to hear the useful stuff and ignore the filler?
You have to focus exclusively on content words. These are the words that carry the actual meaning, and importantly, they usually get the most spoken emphasis. So we're talking nouns like villages, river, ferry, and main verbs like very, run, affect. You should just consciously ignore the function words in, on, for, a, the. They don't give you much information.
Okay, can you model that for us? If a speaker says the research suggests the changes in the climate will affect the villages by the river, what should my pencil be writing down?
Great question. If I were saying that naturally, I'd probably stress. The research suggests the changes in the climate will affect the villages by the river. You hear that emphasis?
I do, yeah.
Your notes should just look something like, research changed climate affect villages river. You're capturing the skeleton of the sentence, not all the connective tissue.
That makes it so much more manageable. But what do we do about unknown words, especially in, say, an academic lecture in IELTS Listening Part 4, where things can get technical?
This is where you have to use the speaker's own clues, their signposts. An expert speaker knows they're using complex terms, so they often provide definition cues right after the word. They basically clarify it for you in real time. Your job is to listen for that cue, that signpost, and then write down the definition that follows.
So what are some of those critical cue phrases we should be listening for?
You're listening for things like IE. In other words, that is, by X, or that is to say, these are lifelines. So if a lecturer says, employers value conscientious workers, that is to say, workers who complete tasks with care, the phrase, that is to say, is your signal. The definition is coming right now.
So you don't need to panic about the word conscientious.
Exactly. You just need to write down the clear explanation that they give you.
That's a huge advantage. Okay, and a final quick tip on structure. You mentioned word endings.
Absolutely. It's an efficient shortcut. Academic subjects often end predictably. Ics like economics, ecology like sociology. Occupations often end in ic for general roles, like teacher or farmer, but in icus for specialists, like biologist or economist. Knowing that helps you classify information really quickly in your notes.
All right, let's move to the language you need for discussing complex topics, for debating ideas. This is essential for the writing and speaking exams, but also just for advanced professional dialogue.
Let's start with some high-level academic verbs. These describe intellectual processes, not physical ones. So define, which is explaining the meaning. Analyze, breaking something down to understand it. And evaluate, which is making a judgment about something's value, its strengths, and its weaknesses.
So if I'm presenting a business proposal, I would need to define the scope, analyze the market, and then evaluate the risks.
Precisely. Each verb signals a different and more rigorous level of thought you've applied.
And what about when you're positioning yourself in an argument? I'm thinking about those reporting verbs. What's the real difference between, say, disagreeing with something and disputing it?
Using these specific verbs gives you surgical precision. To advocate for something is to publicly recommend it. It's a proactive, positive stance. To object is to express dislike or disapproval. It's often more of an emotional or moral rejection.
Right.
Now, to dispute something is very specific. It means you are saying a fact or statement is incorrect. You're challenging its truth. And finally, to justify is to prove that a decision or an action is reasonable or necessary. These verbs show a real mastery over how ideas interact.
Okay, final question on vocabulary. It's about subtlety. Connotation matters so much at this level. How can we show that precision without sounding like we just ate a thesaurus?
It all comes down to synonym choice and the attitude it conveys. For instance, both challenge and obstacle refer to difficulty, but the difference in feeling is profound.
How so?
Well, if you say, the market presents a severe challenge, you're implying that you believe it can be overcome. It sounds proactive, even a little optimistic.
I see.
But if you say, the market presents a severe obstacle, you're suggesting it's much harder to overcome, maybe even insurmountable. That subtle difference, embedded right in the noun, communicates your confidence level instantly. Hashtag outro. So we've covered a really high-level range of vocabulary today. It's what you need for the intricate dynamics of the modern workplace, from how to ace a negotiation to understanding the difference between a hectic and a stimulating job. And of course, we've also looked at those precise strategies to maximize your performance under pressure in listening exams.
And what stands out to you listening to this? For me, it's how using a word like commence sets a serious expectation, or how following up is all about accountability. And that practical tip about identifying content words versus function words, that alone is a game changer for note-taking. These are the things that get you to that C1 level of mastery. And remember, mastering these terms goes way beyond just getting definitions right. It's about cultivating a sophisticated appreciation for the workplace. It empowers you to articulate not just what is happening, but why it matters.
And that leads to the provocative thought we want to leave you with. The language we consciously choose in our working lives, it doesn't just passively describe our reality, it actively shapes it. So think about the impact your next carefully chosen professional verb might have. If you choose to advocate for a new policy, you aren't just suggesting it, you're taking a powerful rhetorical stance. Choose your words not just for correctness, but for consequence. Until the next deep dive, keep learning.